Hey YouTubers and diesel owners, I just finished adding gauges to my 2005 Dodge Ram's Cummings Diesel. I went with the Glowshift gauges mostly because of the YouTube videos and website videos on Glowshift on how to install them. They also have a great customer service and tech support available. The reason I wanted to do this video is to touch on some of the things the videos I saw there leave out. My gauges are already installed, but I'm going to walk you through the steps and give you the info that I wish I had before I installed the gauges. I went with the 4-gauge setup. I got the 3-gauge pillar pod off eBay. It comes with 3 gauges and a test port extender for the trans temp and a boost bolt for the boost gauge. They don't make a 4-pod pillar for 2005. It starts at 2006 and goes up from there. So I added my 4th gauge to the steering column. This 3-gauge pillar pod was $249 on eBay, and then I spent $170 adding a fuel pressure gauge. The boost is supposed to go on this pillar pod, but I moved it down here because I wanted my fuel pressure gauge up here. This pillar pod I ordered off eBay, it comes from Glowshift. They kind of package it up, and it's a better price. Here's all the tools you're going to need for the job. I used a right angle drill. That worked really well for getting into the engine compartment to drill that exhaust manifold. And then next to it is the drill and tap. And then I used 3 sockets. You got a 1/2 inch, a 7/16, and a 10 millimeter. And then I had 3 box wrench ratcheting wrenches. These are the box wrenches that I used. I used 7/8, 11/16, 3/4, 9/16, 5/8, and a 1/2 inch. And that little screwdriver, I'll tell you more about that later. That's got a magnetic tip on it. I use that for the exhaust manifold. And the fuel pressure gauge comes with copper crush washers, but I bought from the dealer some crush washers. They're a little better quality. The first gauge I installed was the boost gauge, and it was by far the easiest. You'll just have to remove this wire harness right here to get to this boost bolt, and you don't want to tighten this too much. 120 inch-pounds is what they recommend. And then I just run my boost vacuum line all the way to the firewall. And then I route it up around the steering column, and I drilled a hole in the back of this pod just for make room for the fitting and the vacuum line. They have a hole in the bottom, but I didn't want it to go straight down, so I wanted to go out a little bit, out of the back of the gauge and then down. I drilled a 7/16 hole in the back. And I wrapped my boost line in conduit to protect it from the heat of the engine. These are the 2 wiring kits that I bought. Ended up using both of them. This is the 3-gauge harness with the 7-color series. That comes with 3 extra wires, a green, a brown, and a blue. I really only used the green. The brown and the blue are extra. I didn't know that. I had to call Glowshift and ask them about that. I wasn't sure what they were used for, but they're just used to extend sensor wires. So I used the green wire to extend the trans temp sensor since it's so far from the gauge. And then I bought this other 3-gauge, and it's power-only wiring kit, and that's good to extend the wiring in the engine compartment. I'll show you that later. Next gauge that I installed is the trans temp gauge, and it's hard to tell on the website which bolt it is, but this is the bottom of the pan, and on the passenger side there's a bolt in the middle. You got one here that's towards the front of the vehicle, then you got one in the middle, then you got one in the back. If you can kind of see it, it's back here on the side right there. You want the one in the middle. When you take it out, I had this happen to me, fluid will come out. So I had my test port extender and sensor ready to go. So when the bolt comes out, get ready to thread that one back in before you lose a bunch of fluid. Not a lot came out, but enough to make a mess. And the black wire coming off the sensor is a ground wire, and I just ran that up. There was a bolt coming out of the cab, and I just used that and threaded a wing nut on there. So that's grounded to the truck. And then I got my green wire coming from the sensor off the gauge, and I bought two wiring kits. I bought the 3 gauge wiring kit with the extra wires, and I bought the 3 gauge wiring kit without the wires. I'll show you those. And I use that green wire to extend it down to here, and then I've got this conduit wrapped around it to protect it from the heat of the exhaust here. And the next gauge that I ran, I thought was going to be the hardest, but it wasn't. It's the exhaust temp gauge. And the hardest part was deciding where to drill the hole. There's a lot of controversy on where to drill it. Glowshift said they get the most accurate results between the 5 and the 6 cylinder. So as you can see here on the videos, it's really hard to tell where they drill it, but if you can get a good look here, it's right almost in line with that bolt on the exhaust manifold that mounts to the turbo. And it's kind of on, it's above this line right here, and it's kind of in this corner. I've used just enough of the flat surface so that it didn't have a gap. And I was worried that the probe wouldn't fit if I drilled it in the wrong spot, but the spot that I picked worked out great. The probe extends, it's pretty long, so it goes in there quite a ways. I was worried if I drilled it too far back it would be too long, but it worked out okay. Drilling wasn't hard. The metal's relatively thin. Just make sure you have nice sharp bits. I oiled my bits, and that kind of kept the shavings from getting everywhere. When you drill the hole, I started with a 1/8 inch bit just to get it started, and then I went right to the bit that they send with the tap. And I used this. It's got a magnetic tip on the end. After I drilled my hole, I used this to get out the shavings. It's nice and thin, and it's got a magnet on the end, and it pulled out the shavings that I needed, so I didn't have to worry about those getting into the engine or the turbo or anything like that. When you tap it, I'll show you the tap that I used. This is the tap that they send you in the kit, and this is the drill bit. It was nice and sharp. It worked great. Worked good. This just goes in here like this. I thought I was going to be able to use a socket, but you need a special adapter for that. I borrowed this set from my dad, and it worked out good. Got it nice and straight. When you're tapping it, you just want to make sure that you go in a little ways and then back it out. Get some of those metal shavings that you cut, because I just went in all the way with mine and then tried to back it out, and the metal shavings, I had to really work to get it out. I recommend doing a little bit at a time and then backing it out and get those shavings out, and then use that magnetic screwdriver to get those shavings out again. And as you can see, it comes up and it goes across the firewall and it goes down into the cab, and it's just the right length to go over here. It's just the right length to come into here. I had extended these wires not thinking it was going to be long enough, but it was perfect. So that comes right in underneath, right in here, through this grommet, and it feeds up through here, and I did my ground here, a lot of my connections right here. The fuel pressure gauge was by far the hardest. It wasn't that hard, but I did have trouble wiring that relocation hose just because of the length of that snubber valve and that banjo bolt. It was real tough to get in there. It was a real tight fit, but once you get it threaded, it sucks it up pretty good. You just got to go cautiously, make sure you don't cross thread it, get it started, and that was the hard part, but I was able to get through that. And the relocation kit comes with a fuel pressure sensor. I wasn't sure if it was going to come with one or not. I didn't know what I was going to do if it didn't, but it does. And it goes up here and it bolts to this wall. The one problem I had here was this bolt was too big to fit this relocation bracket. I had to drill out the bracket to fit this bolt back in, and once I did that, it mounted up fine. And I got it all installed, and there was no leaks. The one thing you do want to do is when you take that factory banjo bolt out, diesel fluid's going to leak out, so when you reinstall the banjo bolt and the snubber valve and the relocation hose, you'll want to prime the engine at least 10 times. So turn the ignition on and off 10 times to get that diesel fuel back into the filter and get it filled up again. And the red, orange, and yellow wires come up through the firewall. They're wrapped in this red conduit, and I had to extend mine. Now you might find a fuse under the dash you could tap into, but for me, I had to extend mine. I used that extra harness to extend my wires to this fuse panel, and you can look here on this fuse panel bracket, and it tells you, it goes 1 through 73, and it tells you what each fuse is for. And I use number 28 on here. I use the fuse expandable fuses, and I use number 28 for the orange wire. That's the cluster. It says to wire it into the headlights, which makes sense. That might be under the dash, but I just ran it here to the cluster, so the lights will come on when the cluster's on. And then the red wire goes to number 35. That's the ignition, so that's going to come on when the ignition's on. And then the yellow wire is to number 42. That's the power outlet console. That's the outlet in the middle between the seats. So this makes it easier. These expandable circuits work really well. Makes it so much nicer. And that concludes my install. Got the 4 gauges, they all work. If you have any questions or comments, just leave them down below. I'll try and get back to you. Alright, thanks now. Alright, I hope this helps. Alright guys.